feedback from last meeting that we're tracking. People really liked the connection, the pace, and the positive energy, and examples of what a small test could be. And people really liked the gardening video. Thanks again, Misha and Melvin, for your session around anti-racism and how it focused us on the environment, not the flower, to promote growth. And then we're tracking to improve. People ask for a weekly checklist to like help stay on task, to complete what needs to be done before the next convening, and then breaking up the sections of talking a little bit more. And so kind of right off the bat, we just wanted to respond to that feedback, and we put our heads together as a facilitator team to make a weekly schedule for the rest of the program. So it's kind of unbelievable, but we are in September, and then the program is going to be over in early November. So just wanted to quickly share this week by week checklist in case it's helpful, and each team will have the chance to kind of adapt this or use it to whatever degree is helpful. You don't have to follow it exactly, but the idea is that breaking things down into just what do we need to do this week, we'll be more likely to hit our goal of testing up to 3 different ideas around how to make your program trauma informed. And so you can see here just the checklist. You can kind of check it off as you go. All the teams framed a design challenge and hosted a brainstorming session. We're here this week of September 7th doing convening number 6. And as you can go through the week by week, this is just one example of how it could look to do different little bets or small tests between now and convening 7. And the big idea for just the calendar is that kind of now until the end of October, so really 2 months, we're on like a 8-week or less sprint of testing till October 31st. And then the first couple weeks in November will be a chance to wrap up and a chance to summarize and plan like a bigger vision and what's next after the program. And then we'll have our celebration convening in the middle of November. I just wanted to share this week by week calendar, and we'll be digging into it more in our weekly, in our team meetings. And we put this week by week calendar into each team's homework document. Up at the top, you'll see it says week by week calendar for phase 2. Please make it your own. And then wanted to introduce an idea about a weekly check-in. And we've talked about this with some of the teams in individual meetings. But in order to hit the goals of the program and help move things forward, our recommendation would be for each team to host a weekly meeting between now and the end of the program. And Vici or I can come to this working meeting. It can be short, like 30 to 45 minutes, but it likely won't work just to check in once in between convenings, because this is really the doing part we're moving into now, the testing part. And we just want to be supportive, want to make it a fun space. So we do have funding where we can provide like food or meals for your weekly meeting. If there's a place you'd like to get takeout or food, we can provide that. And it really can just be a working meeting. Like the idea is to pick one time on your calendar in the week that we come together and it's what do we need to do this next week, put our heads together, just having some, just to keep things moving and on track. And then just a reminder, please keep taking photos as you do this process. When you get, it's going to fly. We're going to blink and we'll be at the end. And when you get to the end, it'll be really nice to have photos or documentation to be able to help tell your story as you look backwards. So just, we'll keep lifting up, take photos as you go. And then teams have been using the submission form. Thank you so much for doing that. And whenever you'd like, you can, at the bottom of the form, request if you'd like specific support from any of the facilitators. So we check it rigorously, and whenever you submit, we respond. So please keep submitting on the submission form whenever you complete a step in the process. Yeah, any questions about the week by week or anything I just shared before we get into the nitty gritty with Christina? Sweet. We'll get ready for some fun. And Christina, I'll turn it over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Seth. So We are excited to kind of step in, just as Seth said, to this, just to take a next step. There's so much work that we're building on from all the brainstorms you just had. So how do we take that next step towards some of these small tests and move forward some of your concepts into reality and get some feedback on those? So also in line with the feedback you gave around kind of breaking up some of the times where we're sharing out information and some of your working sessions. The way this is going to work is we're going to just go through 3 rotations. So I'm going to share some information about different ways you can do these small tests, or what we're calling little bets. And we'll take about 15 minutes to tee this up. Then you'll break into some groups and put together, map that out and actually build, how are you going to go test this? Then we'll come back together and talk about, how are you going to get feedback on these tests? And then you'll go do that with another team. You'll go ahead and get feedback. And then we'll talk about, how do you process that feedback? What can you do with it to make the concept and the little bit you've built out even better? And then you'll have a chance to do that and iterate and improve your idea based on the feedback you get. So that's how the next couple of hours are going to map out, all towards just moving this one step further into action and making some of your visions around this work one step closer to reality. So let me share screen around this. So to kick off this section in light of that, I'm going to share one of my favorite people, James Baldwin, and a quote from him that says, "Those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others who are doing it." So wanted to just get a couple people in light of what we're doing today to comment on, how does this, what does this mean to you when you read this quote and think about what it's meaning in light of the work we're going to do today?
I think for me, like, honestly, this just kind of speaks to my soul. Mr. Williams and Mr. Robinson will tell you, like, if you want to motivate me to do something, tell me I can't do it. And do it 3 or 4 times better than you asked for. So I love this. So.
Love that. Anyone else?
What resonates with me is not solely the words of Mr. Baldwin, but the fact that he said it. You know, when you know how he lived his life and all the work that he did, how boldly he led, it strikes me as someone who is not saying this because it sounds good, but he's speaking from experience. And so it just gives me that extra fire, you know, to do the work that we're doing, which I believe is so important for the young people and the families that each of you all serve.
I love that word fire in terms of the spark of energy we hope starts to continue to evolve in the work we do today together. So all of this work is that we're going to talk about today is partly inspired by this book, Little Bets. And for those that aren't familiar with it, a little bet, and the way it's defined by the Little Bets book, is just a concrete action taken to discover, test, develop ideas that are achievable and affordable. So what that means today is just taking some of the great ideas that you've brainstormed and testing them in a way that's achievable and affordable. Achievable and affordable both in terms of time and money. So a couple examples, and I want to share from the book. That's why we use this as a lens, I think, for testing ideas. And one is just the idea of an immersive experience. So we have an example of Chris Rock, who is one of the most popular comedians in the world, but he also has, my slides are stuck here for some reason. Sorry, we'll keep talking while they unstick. He's responsible for not only like his great talent, but his approach is something that I think has helped guide his success. So one of the things that Chris Rock does when he puts on a new show is he'll pick a venue, just a really small venue, and 40 or 50 times will go to a show, go to one of these venues with hundreds of jokes. The vast majority fail. Like people are just cross their arms, they're looking very skeptically at what's going on. And but he brings a little legal pad and he just writes down anytime he sees just a pause or some body language to note, oh, there might be something interesting going on here. This might be a little bit funny. And it gets better and better and better until he's ready for a world tour. And after discovering this and having comedians share a lot about how they've done things or not done things, they were able to share that in general, some of the best comedians all follow a similar process where they may be going for 6 to 12 months, almost every single night, at least 5 nights a week, to these small comedy shows to be able to test out their content and be able to drive something that's a totally better show within 6 to 12 months. So the idea is just immerse yourself. One of the things we learned from this is people have said that if you wait until you're no longer embarrassed to share your content, you've probably waited too long. So you just have to like get it out there. The next slide from this book is an example from Muhammad Yunus, who is an economist at the University of Bangladesh. He was also the founder of Convening Bank, which is one of the things that does microfinance loans. Because of that, he was the recipient of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize. So the story of Yunus, which is just amazing, is he talked about, so his way of doing these little bet tests is what we call a journey map, which is really just trying to map out like what's happening day to day in a process. And within that, are there any pain points we can identify that's preventing growth, that's preventing the whoever's making things from being able to achieve their goals? And Yunus used to, there was in 1974, there was a huge famine in Bangladesh. And there's people starving in the street, people moving from the countryside into the cities in search for food, but just a lot of people dying from starvation. And he used to start to dread his own lectures, saying like, what good are all these complex theories on economics when there's people dying of starvation literally right outside my lecture hall? And he thought that like economists are spending all their time detailing the processes for development and prosperity, but it rarely reflects the origin and development of what's happening day to day for those living in poverty, those facing hunger. So he went to some of the towns to try to understand in a much more detailed way, doing these journey maps, what's happening. And what he found is an example with one woman who made baskets. So she Sophia spent about 10 hours a day making baskets. And all this hard work for these stools, and all this hard work making these beautiful stools out of bamboo, she earned 2 cents a day. And when he mapped out like, how is this happening? It was because in order to get the materials she needed to make these stools, she needed 22 cents. And because she couldn't get to accumulate 22 cents to buy the materials, she had to go to these lenders. And there was lenders that charged anywhere from 10% a day to 10% a week in terms of interest, and had all kinds of other things, so that basically in order to take out the loan and pay it back, she was only making 2 cents a day. And so microfinance whole industry started by Yunus discovering this and saying, okay, I could give you a loan for 22 cents to make this happen. And then he went to the town and found out, how many other people is this happening to? And he found out for $27, there's 41 kind of entrepreneurial ventures like this he could support. And from there, it blew into the whole microfinance loan, where there was $6.5 billion in loans being given. And the repayment loan of all those loans was in the 98% rate, which was similar to like anywhere else in the world. And it was just the way that they went in and found people who were on to amazing things like these stools and able to pay back. So, but the idea is like, how did he do this in testing? It was just detailing out what's happening and where is their pain point. Super simple, discovery, but getting to that level of detail changed everything. Next slide. So what we want to do today is just talk about what is a little bet and 4 different ways that we've discovered to make these little bets of our own, like what Eunice did, like what Chris Rock does. And from there, go ahead and build those. We have 3 different templates you can build them in today. So the whole idea is to make some of the brainstorm ideas you had tangible so you can get feedback without spending all your time explaining it, like moving into some of these immersive experiences or moving into some of these ways in which you can get feedback more quickly, learn quickly, and try many ideas without getting emotionally attached. Sometimes if you know someone's worked on something for like 5 months, when you present it, you're like, isn't this great? And people can't really give the same level of feedback. So this is, how do you build something in just 20 minutes today and then go test it and get feedback and make it better? So the first thing that we're going to talk about is these immersive experiences. This is very similar to what I just shared with Chris Rock, but there's a couple other examples here. So one is this example of an airline. This was a international airline. So this is the pictures on the left, where they were hearing that passengers really wanted to be able to lay down and sleep while they were going for these long flights, no matter what cabin they were in, just, regular coach cabin. And so they decided they were going to build this aircraft to test it out. And they thought, well, let's just do a little test here. And so they just made these makeshift bunk beds with chairs. And you can see how close people have to be able to do that. And so quickly, in just 5 minutes, very quick feedback, they realized like, this is not going to work. People are not going to be comfortable with this. So it's just a very quick immersive experience. On the right, what you see is a team leader who is creating a new program for mentoring with youth and sports. And they were trying to develop this new type of protocol for a mentoring session. So they just hopped on Zoom and did that. So that's an example of another just very simple immersive experience, but just trying to take one thing, know that it's not perfect, it's super messy, but just get it out there. And the faster you get out there, the quicker you'll get feedback. That's another example. Similarly, or just a set of simulations. So there's all different kinds you can do. Just one example talking here is on the right-hand side, what you'll see is this was the Berkeley Public Library. And they thought that they wanted to reframe the role of the library in the community. And one of the ways they wanted to do that was to build a website where the library became the source of all these hidden gems in the community. And people would share what they thought the hidden gems were, and others could comment on that. And rather than building out the whole website and investing a lot of time and money in that, what they decided to do is they just set up shop for 1 hour outside the Berkeley Public Library with this poster and said, hey, is there a story of like a hidden gem in the community that you would want to share? And they recorded in that 1 hour 10 videos that they uploaded, and then they were able to quickly just get feedback on those videos. And this is just a 1 hour little bet. The next kind of bets I want to talk about is what we call the card sort. And the card sort is something where you can just get some images from the internet, you print on paper or whatever. This particular card sorting activity was an organization we're working with in Memphis. And they were trying to, they're building a center that really bridges many different communities coming together. And they were trying to understand what would attract those within the community to want to come to one of these events and start to engage in this this community that was going to build something new. They were building a school, they were building a community center, they were building a whole different way of learning across generations together. So they put together just a mock-up of these 4 different ways and having something real to respond to and saying like, this would be my favorite, this would be my least favorite, and having both ends of the spectrum gave all kinds of amazing feedback. We did something similar when we were talking about learning experiences. We just had images, we had 20, and we asked students to say like, what are your top 3 images that would reflect like the learning experience you love? What are 3 images that you definitely wouldn't want? And just as a quick example, we learned all kinds of things, but as a quick example, we put something in there, a picture of a dinosaur, and we were doing it with young kids, and we thought like, kids love dinosaurs, they're gonna love the dinosaur. unanimously, like every single kid put the dinosaur at the bottom 3, and they said it was in the bottom 3 because their teachers oftentimes were having these ancient lectures that weren't attached to anything that they thought was relevant, and they wanted to make sure that lessons were relevant and updated and weren't like 20 years old. And we thought that was just an interesting learning too, on just how important that was, and even the 30 seconds that it took for teachers to be able to connect the relevance meant the world to the students. And the last example here is 2 different ways of just mapping out a series of events. So one is just a storyboard. You can think of it just like a comic strip of something that you want to design for the future. And it could be as simple as just beginning, middle, end in terms of a panel. And you can have any simple story or a simple comic strip. This is just an example of redesigning a morning routine. And you can do it with headlines and drawings. You can do it with just words, whatever works best. But this is an example of reimagining the future of what you would want a morning routine to look like and why. And then there's a journey map, which is really just the same thing. And it could be as simple as just 3 scenes. It could be many more. But it's trying to map historically what has been happening. And within what's happening, is there a pain point? And by identifying that pain point, then you can redo the journey map to have something different happen in the future to solve for that pain point. So Eunice and the whole example of this 22 cents being this huge pain point that unleashed everything is an example of all you're doing with the journey map is mapping historically what's been happening in each of these stages. And within that is there's something that's like the big challenge area, the big pain point, and then rethinking it. So the action here is just every step of the way, what are all the details that's happening in the morning routine? And then within that, you know, this doesn't highlight it, but within that, is there an example where something happens and somebody's always late to work, or something happens and they don't get to cuddle and read the book because that's their favorite time in the morning. So how are you defining the pain points or the delight points? And you can keep this as super detailed as you want, as super simple as you want. It's really depending on what you're mapping out. So before we get into dividing back into your teams and jumping into map one of these things, you'll have the option to either jump. We thought the card sort might take a little bit too long today, but hope that could inspire teams to think through something in the future, and happy to give more detailed instructions if people are interested in a card sort post this session. But just either pick an immersive experience, a journey map, or a storyboard. We have templates for each of the coaches to work with to build out your ideas, and have 20 minutes to be able to do that. But before we do, just any questions about any of those examples? They're really, nothing has to be exactly that way. Those details were really just meant to be a spark of, there's lots of ways to test things. Think rough, think messy, think you should be able to map this out in 20 minutes or so and be able to actually like do it in an hour. And again, today, what's up next is you'll be able to share your idea and get feedback with one of the other teams here as an example of like doing your little bet. After this session, you'll be able to share your concept with actual users that would be going through it. Pause just for a minute, either throw in the chat or raise your hand if you have examples. And I'll also call on, if there's not, if Jonathan, if you want to share just even one quick example of one of these little bets that you've done that has been helpful, that would be great.
Sure. I think what I love about little bets, and I'm just kind of echoing what Christina already said, was that it allows you to try things out without investing a lot of time and money. You know, when you're thinking about the fact that our teams are churches, our schools, you know, government agencies, we don't have a lot of money. I mean, government may waste a lot of money, but we don't necessarily have a lot of money to just throw around and try crazy ideas if we don't have a sense of whether or not the community is really going to respond. And so an example of this from a project I've been supporting is a group of parents and educators from up in South Dakota are looking to launch a small independent school for Indigenous students. It's kind of started last year during the pandemic when school was canceled. And now they've really kind of fallen in love with this idea of creating a space where their kids would be seen, where their identities would be affirmed, where they can really begin to explore what it looked like to immerse themselves in language and culture. To Christina's point, if we spend 6 months to a year designing this school and no one's going to come give you feedback because they're going to be terrified. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They already put a lot of time and money into that. You know, nobody wants to be the one to say, hey, you spelt that wrong after the book is published, kind of thing. But when we did journey maps, it was very simple to share an idea of what we thought a day in the life of a student could be, and to get feedback from people to say, oh, I think that could be a pain point. Like a very simple example, we wanted to do, or they were talking about family style meals. They're like, it's a small community. We want everyone to know everyone. We'll have meals together. And someone pointed out that a potential pain point was if a young person isn't in the practice of having family meals, that would be a new experience. It could be a trigger. And so not that we shouldn't do it, but how are we mindful of that unique experience so we can support young people through it? And it was just a very simple way to do that without spending, like I said, 6 months to a year designing this school and then find out folks don't like something about it. So I really just encourage you to take this time, because it really is, I heard folks say how many ideas come out. This is a place where you can try out an idea before you get so far down the line and people get invested and then they get territorial. Hey, we put in a lot of time in this idea. We don't want to change it now. So it's a lot of fun. It's not very hard. You're already experts in everything you need to know to do it. So it's going to be a blast. And you have your coaches and all the expert facilitators here as well. And we're here to help you too. So just like lean in. I think it'll be a blast.
The link I just dropped in the chat, it will take you to a Google Drive folder that has a different Jamboard for each team. So I'm just going to use Greater is Coming and the Courthouse as an example. But you would click that link and go to the folder, and then open up your Jamboard, and then pick as a team from your brainstorm, from your prioritized list, just for the purpose of this 20 minutes, what's one idea you want to test out? And then pick either a journey map, storyboard, or an immersive experience. Like, how could we just role play this or model this in real life? And on the storyboard, you can either draw with like a pen if you'd like you can draw on it, or put a sticky note out on the board and kind of move it around and put it in the correct place. But you're gonna, with your team, pick an idea and then pick, are we doing a journey map, a storyboard, or an immersive experience?
And have fun. There's science behind laughter bringing creativity. So whatever silly, fun things people can bring to these, it really does promote even better work and even more creative ideas. So 20 minutes in your team. I'm going to move from team to team. The coaches will be guiding this next set of work. I'll move from team to team if there's any questions, and also can meet anybody back in this main room if there's any questions that's helpful for me.
Cool. So I've got the room set up. Any last questions or words before we shoot out? Okay, I'm going to do it. If you end up in the wrong place, please come back to the main room and I will move you back.
So there's 3 steps to the feedback. There's seeking feedback, giving feedback, and then capturing your feedback. So you can take your idea to the next level. In terms of seeking effective feedback, we just put together this list of like 3 do's and 3 don'ts. I'm trying to keep it really simple. Oops. So on the do, these sound really simple, but I can tell you most people don't do it. So I'll just give you some examples. The talk less, listen more. So if you have 10 minutes to gather feedback and it's 10 precious minutes to get all the insights from someone you're trying to get feedback from, make sure that you don't take 7 of those 10 minutes telling them everything that you already know. Make sure you do the reverse. Like, you should be talking no more than 20 to 30% of the time. And even though, we'll share that up front, you should have someone in your team actually timing. How much do we actually end up talking and taking? If you master this more than anything else, if you master this, you're going to be getting a lot better feedback, because really it's just making sure you take the time to listen. Observe. This gets back to the Chris Rack. Like, sometimes I'm just looking for the facial expressions, like really trying to understand how people are reacting to what you're doing. So not just based on what they say, but some of the other visceral reactions. And then design, you're building empathy with this, but you're also designing. This is like a co-design opportunity, designing with the tester in real time. So when they say, well, how would this work? Answer a question with a question. Say, how do you think it would work? Or how do you think it should work? And that's where you start to get into the co-design part. So that's the essence. And really just the opposite of that is, like, don't oversell. We have this picture of the used car salesman. Don't get so excited about your idea you're trying to convince someone it's good. You're really just trying to share in a neutral space. Again, back to Chris Rock, when he told his jokes, he didn't do it with all the performance and glitz and all that kind of stuff. It was just a very neutral, with his legal pad, taking notes. So yeah, you don't want to be in sales mode at all. Same thing with over-explaining. If someone doesn't understand, again, answer the question with a question. Don't over-explain. If they don't understand, there's probably something that you go to co-design mode. And don't over-clarify. Same things that we're explaining. So that's it around the seeking effective feedback. And then on the next step in terms of getting feedback to the next level and sharing effective feedback, part of what we're going to want to do there is just use some kind of protocol so you can get feedback from everyone. It's important to hear all the voices in the group or in the users you're working with, especially if there's more than one. So ask that you use some kind of protocol where you'll just go through everyone you're getting feedback from. You'll say, like, I heard or I see, and you just call out things that you like or appreciate about what you heard. The positive things that as they iterate, you want them to keep in the design. The second thing is I wonder, like, just things you're curious about or you don't understand, or truly just wondering kind of questions where you don't know the answer. And then last is I would encourage you to. So this is kind of advice, constructive criticism, yes and ideas. So those are all the pieces for the giving feedback. And then in terms of capturing effective feedback, your coaches will have this in the folder. What you'll want to go through in terms of a debrief process, we don't have designed immediately in this feedback session. You'll do it when you go back to the prototype. It's just trying to log, but you can be logging these notes as you're hearing the feedback, like what went well, what should you change, new questions based on the questions that the user brought back in the I wonder phase, and new ideas that come to mind. It could be things directly associated with what your testers said I would encourage you to, or it could be things that just like in a brainstorm session triggered for you when you heard some of those ideas. So just those 4 questions, we can put those, again, the coach will be taking these kind of notes in the debrief, but you can be capturing these as you hear the feedback too. VG or Sept, do you want to explain which group is going to be working with which group on the feedback, and then I'll talk about the timing.
Yeah, so once we do go into breakouts, Hope and the courthouse team are going to be in the same room. So you all will be giving feedback to each other. The Impact Academy and Spate will be in the same room. And then the Reach Center is going to have some of our ROI staff members in there to be like your users that are giving feedback.
And in terms of timing, each team will have 10 minutes. So in terms of those 10 minutes, you generally don't want to spend any more than 2 minutes, very, very, very max 3, but I would try to keep it to 2 to introduce the idea. And then most of the rest will be getting feedback using that I wonder, I would encourage you to protocol. And there could be questions that come up, and I would more listen to the questions, answer questions with questions. And then someone in each of the groups, if the coaches could time, and then make sure at the 10-minute mark you switch to the next group. So there's plenty of time for both groups to get feedback. And then you'll immediately have time to go into a break. So Vici, what time does that mean we'll be coming back together?
Let's say 2:25, 45. Let's just say like I don't know, Seth, what do you think? 2:55? Yeah, we're just gonna say that. So basically at 2:55 we'll all come back. So you kind of have to manage your own time of like 10 minutes for each group, and then right into a break. So if you want to spend extra time, you can. If you're done early, you can. The bottom line is back in the room. The breakout rooms will close at 2:55, and then we will start with the next thing. So build your break in.
And I think one thing just to note is like partly what you're trying to get feedback on is,
And maybe to make sure people.
okay.
You're on mute, Seth.
My bad. Was just saying maybe someone in the room just put a timer on for 10 minutes. And when the timer goes off, next team goes, timer goes off, take a break, just to make sure people get a break.
And one thing to focus is to make sure what you're getting feedback on is what are you going to be able to go do as a little bet in like an hour-ish when you leave here. So the zeroing in on that piece to get feedback on more than anything else. Great.
Any like questions from anyone before we do this? Cool.
So if you haven't yet, keep chatting. Even if you sent one idea, I want to put more in so we can read this thread. But I want to comment on a bunch of things here. So one, the last couple here, team further than imagined. I love the feedback that caused us to think about others we should include in our process. So one, just opening up a realm of possibilities on like how far can you go, and thinking about the quote that we started with, and just getting things done and moving forward into what others might not think possible. I love that these conversations were open, no one held back, they were free flowing. The feedback was helpful. The feedback was given in a spirit of care. And like this likes to grow from the small bite ideas. So a lot about growth and progress. So a bunch of specific ideas. One of the three things to call out that were just a little bit more surprising. So one was that there were surprises and how much people love those surprises. So understanding like, oh my gosh, this team, we should be partnering with this team. They're doing so many things that are similar and like-minded to us. That can happen when you're out there doing these little bets. You can fall upon unexpected partners or unexpected ideas. So just getting out there and connecting with lots of people on these, that's just one example of a surprise. There's all kinds of other fun surprises that happen in this kind of process. The other thing I want to point out, which is both probably the obvious, but interesting in terms of the asset mapping of the community. So being able to find these nuggets, being able to lean into the wisdom of others in your community, and being able to share just how valuable those insights are and use those insights to take your work to the next level, I think is really quite powerful. And because with that belief in mind, knowing how important it is to get out there and get even more of that from all kinds of different teams, especially your users, that'll help make your idea that much better, that much faster. And then the last piece at the top was, just the similarities and overlap, great conversation. So that gets into some of the unexpected partnership, but also just the excitement that happens when you have a great conversation and where that leads into possibilities. It just makes it fun and exciting, and it gives you that boost you need to continue to do some of the hard work to make some of this change happen. So one more thing I want to do just to kind of get a sense of where teams are before we go into this next phase. We'll do one more round in the chat. Would love everyone just to put in like, what's one word that describes how you're feeling going into, like using the feedback you have to go into just one more round of version 2.0 of your little bet. And based on that, we can Norm and figure out what anything else that's helpful for us to connect on before we give you time and space to go back into your rooms. Get hyped, excited, determined, intentional, ready, inspired, curious, if you haven't had a chance to share, I would love to hear everybody. So we have the whole range of where we're feeling confident. Awesome. Joyful, expectant. Just keep going and do it. The idea that the Hope Crib has is the way to go forward. There's no right or wrong way. We won't please everyone, but get started and know that you're doing great work from a great place and things will come together successfully. It made me think of the scripture, don't get weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. Love it, love it. Passionate, focused, and applause. So appreciate all of the energy and the words of wisdom. So I don't want to stand in the way of the energy. We should hop back in the groups. The point of this next section is really just to take everything you've learned from that fantastic feedback, everything that you got started on, and now with a layer of feedback, just take it to the next step. And the hope when you, so you'll have 20 minutes, which will be time to both take whatever little bet you've been working on to the next level, get really sharp on what can you bring with you when you leave today, and try to do, always throw out like, if you just had an hour, what are you going to be able to do? Like, who are you going to connect with? What are you going to talk to them about? How are you going to get the best round of feedback you can from users that can help you take your little bet to the next level? So that's the next 20 minutes. You're going to be in your individual groups again. And I'll float to the groups, but let's just roll with this energy and momentum and insight.
Cool. I'm just reconstructing the groups. But yeah, you'll be with your team. And if that didn't work, as always, tell me. And then we'll come back at 3:35. Does that work? Anybody have any questions? I think we're all back. So all yours, Christina.
Great, thank you. So would love to just unpack everything we just did. One thing I have to say, I had a chance to quickly jump into each of the rooms, and it feels like there's just leaps of progress made in the past 20 minutes. So when we keep talking about what can you do in an hour, what you just did in an hour in terms of building something from scratch and getting feedback and rebuilding it again was 1 hour and giving another team feedback. So that was an hour. So a lot can happen. And there's no magic. It doesn't actually have to be an hour. The point was we were just trying to get things that are small enough that you can get out there and start getting feedback just like you did today to help make this better from those who carry all kinds of wisdom and lived experience to be able to share things to help you quickly take it to the next level before you spend too much time trying to quote perfect it. So wanted to debrief the different parts of the process, and now that you are ready to go take this, see if there's any questions, take this back into working with the community, see if there's any questions about that. But first, let's just talk about building a little bet using one of these methodologies around immersive experience or storyboard or journey map. Any feedback, insight, questions about that? We'd love if both people can throw things in chat and we can read that so we can get a lot of ideas at once, and a couple of people that might want to share any insights, ahas, or questions with the full group. Otherwise, I'll just ask someone or one of the groups.
I can jump in for our group, and then
Yeah.
I definitely would welcome Ms. Holmes or Ms. Budd if they want to add. But from my perspective as a coach, leaning in, what I thought was really powerful was to see how, the process, when you look at it, was really bite-sized for us. So we didn't have to, it wasn't a lot of heavy lifting. We started with a very simple thing, like we could do the journey map, we could do the what do you call it, the storyboard, and then we came back and we got some awesome feedback from the team at Impact Academy, and then we came back, right? So it never felt like we were on our own, but it felt like steadily over the course of the engagement, our ideas were becoming clearer, and we benefited a great deal for the first time getting another team that knows the process and has experienced it to look on our idea. So that for me was a highlight, just to get to hear their feedback and how much, they share some of our community. So when they're sharing that feedback, it really comes with added weight, like they know what we're talking about. So that really helped.
See some thumbs up. Other thoughts of either similar or different experiences with the process?
I think that the quickness of things is helpful. I like coming in, popping in, be like, oh, here's an idea. And then boom, immediately getting feedback. I find that when things are stretched over time, I either forget to do all the components, or it becomes more of a project management and not a let's develop ideas and come up with a program, because I like to do stuff in the moment. Like I really enjoy that. And so being able to get feedback in the moment and then being able to get back together in the moment is really, really helpful. And so I like the ease of it. Like doing this small chunk is really great, because you can be super creative because you're not trying to, my brain didn't approach it in terms of let's do this huge project, because that can just be emotionally and mentally overwhelming. My brain popped up and like, hey, what's a quick idea? Let's flush it out as a team, get immediate feedback, flush it out. So nothing seemed overwhelming. But yeah, this was a cool process, especially when you got someone, as Jonathan said, someone who is in the community, but also not in your group to give feedback, because it comes with so many different perspectives that it just is so much more helpful with adding in perspectives that your team doesn't have, even though the team is diverse in itself.
Excellent point. So much in there. But the idea of putting things in bite size so that you don't get overwhelmed, it also means as you're introducing ideas, you're not overwhelming those that you're trying to get feedback from. So it's a positive step process like that. Thank you. Other experiences?
I'll just say that, like, honestly, this has been my favorite convening so far. Out of all the ones we've had, it might be that I'm like perfectly caffeinated, because I had a lot of caffeine while we but I do feel like out of all the convenings that I've been in, that this one has just been the most productive. I mean, they've all been very helpful, but I feel like that, we've just gotten the most done, and the vibe's just been really good all around. And I think the pace has been awesome, which helps to pass the time. So
there's a lot of work that's been done building up to this moment in terms of the brainstorm and just so much positive momentum coming into this. So you're kind of a part in the cycle where things are starting to come to life too. So it's exciting to see that.
May I add something else?
Please.
Okay, great. So I think that what you just said is a really key piece for me for today that I didn't process through about why today is what it is that, like, so I really like the practical application of things. Philosophy and theory is good. Like, I know it's necessary as well, but I like, hey, if we gather for a meeting, like at work, what's the marching orders and what's next, what's going to be done. So I oftentimes lean toward that. I think that maybe that's another reason why today, while we were sharing ideas and feedback, it was also for us this next step, that these are the things that we're going to be doing. So that's really been helpful. But also realize, especially since you said it, that all of these tools and skill sets and ways and these lenses of thinking really helped add to productivity being, one, doable, but then also more effective, because we have all of this back work. And honestly, that back work has been love the convenings, having a good time with everybody. But by like the nature of my personality and stuff, that back work has been hard for me to like dig into. But I see the benefits of it, like for real. So thanks everybody. Thanks team.
Well, taking this action and momentum, one of the things we hope is there is a lot of energy in like all the rooms today through all of the breakout sessions. So taking this time to take that momentum and continue to build from it, like have it be something that's not, oh, it stalls out. After you come here, there's this like big boost and it stalls out. Like, how can you continue that? So I want to go back to the quote for a minute that we started with, and James Baldwin. Those who say it can't be done are usually interrupted by others doing it. So hope we leave this group in just a minute to reflect on, you are the ones in the community leading and doing it. And how do you take what you learned today to do just that? So we'd love for you to, one thing we know is reflecting on your learning can both solidify the learning and kind of take it simultaneously, take it to the next level. So it's not only like cementing it, solidifying it, but just in reflecting, taking it to the next level. So we'd love for the last piece for everyone before we hand it back to the full group here, for people to have everybody write at least one, if not a couple, ideas in the chat of what's one thing that you learned today that you want to take with you in your leadership to move this change, to actually do it for the community. So it's kind of one learning. And then the second thing is one commitment you want to make to continue this momentum. So one learning, it could be about how to give feedback. It could be about not to get in the way of yourself around trying to perfect things, whatever it is, one learning and one commitment. And throw it in the chat so it just makes it real. You can take a couple minutes to reflect on it. So I'll read them as they come in. Prompts make for a better experience and more, for them, and more well-crafted responses. It's okay to start small. Recruit help. From Paul, learning our environments can discourage or encourage us. Need to create an environment that encourages. Commitment, make at least one useful connection for Hope Team. Kyle, learning the impact of work can be for your organization, but it can also shift community. Commitment, think about how to do things within our program while creating processes that impact the entire community as well. Make it packageable and able to pack and go to different places. Valerie, chunking things into smaller portions and learning together. Mallory, learning little bets have big impact. Commitment, continue to cheer for and support my team. Crystal, learning, I have to connect with people who are doing the work in order to be encouraged to encourage. Commitment, give it everything I've got and not worry about what people outside my organization think. I will make my haters be my motivators, also to be encouraging to others who are doing the work. Melvin, learning, small bets are important. Reflection, it is key to fail forward. Mrs. White, I really, really like the journey map. There are ways we do things similar as a therapist, but I don't think I have heard the term journey map done this way. And it is very simple but concise. I think it lays out things very well for people to see where they are and where they're going. I will use this with my clients. Check commitment, push our team to jump in and start with little bets, smaller portions. Chandra, little bets process feels like building quickly and in the moment, which is exciting instead of intimidating, powerful. Corey, learning one step at a time. Stay focused. All right, as we get the last few, I just feel so grateful and inspired. This has made my month in terms of how much was done and how many possibilities are coming out of today. So thank you. I feel deeply appreciative and can't wait to see what happens between now and next month.
Thank you so much, Christina. Huge appreciation. Just sending lots of gratitude your way. Thank you for leading us through that today. And just wanted to give a big shout out to Tyra and gratitude for sending out gift cards to each participant to hopefully your favorite restaurant or a restaurant that you enjoy. have a food budget, and we're meeting virtually. So I want to make sure to get that food budget to you. Thanks a ton, Tyra. Then I'll kick it over to Vici for closing.
Cool. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm feeling a lot of tingly vibes from everything that just happened. Super cool. So yeah, just wanted to make sure to kind of close out with next steps. Zoom froze. Can people hear me? Sweet. I was like, everything froze. So yeah, just between now and the next convening, we're coming up really on a fast little hustle to the end. So, and I think at this point, now that we've sort of gotten this little bets framework under wraps, it will actually be possible, I think, to move pretty quickly. So to Kyle's point, I think switching over to kind of a like, let's do a bunch of stuff mode, would encourage you all to actually think about setting up a weekly recurring check-in time. And you're welcome to invite Seth or I to it, and just we can kind of provide support around if you want to think through how to test or improve some of your little bets with your actual users. I think a couple teams are still planning to do some more brainstorming, so I'm happy to help with that, but that should be happening in the next month. And then I think a good goal would be to plan to come to the next convening having tested 2 to 3 little bets with the actual people that you serve. So you've already started to build what they look like. You've tested them with peers, but thinking through how you can actually get some feedback from your users and come back with that feedback and hopefully a clearer idea about maybe what is the thing that you want to build forward in more detail. And we'll spend some of the next convening thinking through like, how do we take that little bet and make it a slightly bigger, maybe like longer term, larger scale thing that you can pilot. And so, yeah, before I say any more about next steps, some of you might have noticed that there's somebody named Naomi on the call. She is our newest employee, just started a couple of weeks ago as a director of operations. So just wanted to give her a chance to introduce herself before we close out. So Naomi, if you're on here, give it to you.
I am here. Thank you so much, Vici and Seth, and for all of you for allowing me to just kind of join in and listen and just observe and soak it all in. Special thanks to Jonathan, Ms. Holmes, and Ms. Bud for letting me join their group and kind of chime in where I was able to, but I'm really looking forward to see the next session as well, and looking forward to get to know a little bit more about each of you.
Sweet. So yeah, if you ever get emails and stuff from Naomi, now you know who she is, but we're super excited for her to join the team. And then important dates, our next convening, and honestly, it's really our last working convening, which is kind of hard to believe, will be October 13th from 1 to 4, same Zoom location. Probably be a similar sort of practical situation where we spend some time fleshing out, reflecting on the feedback you got, thinking through like, what's the next iteration of your idea, and also a little bit of a discussion about how we start to tell our story. So like, how do you start to tell the other people in your organization, the other people in the community, what you've done so that you can build buy-in around carrying your ideas forward. So as things get more clear, it starts to get kind of real. Like, how do we actually take this stuff forward? So we'll spend some time on that too. This is a thing that we say every time, but just so you know, in addition to the funding that your team receives every month, we have additional funding available to fund pilots. I think the best time to apply for this will probably be after you do a couple of little bets. You know, like making a storyboard doesn't cost anything, but as it gets more elaborate and you maybe want to test something more complicated, that might be a place where you say like, hey, we might need $5,000 for something. So I wouldn't worry about this right this moment, but possibly like around the next convening or after, this may be a time to think about like, it could be use some money to do some of this stuff. And if you decide that, there is like a short application that you complete to ask for that funding, and it is reviewed within about a week. So it should be a fairly quick turnaround. But again, we can kind of work with you on that in the individual meetings. And then finally, the very last, so we had this convening in October, and then we would like to do a celebratory convening that might be more of like, you know, a graduation type thing. And there's a few options for the dates for that because we never actually set it. So in this reaction survey, one of the questions is actually like a little poll about what dates would work for you. And so a lot of people always fill out the survey, but if you don't, it would be super helpful if you did it this time so that we could get your input on dates. So I think Seth, maybe you could post that in the chat right now. And if you aren't like staring at your calendar right now and need a minute, we'll send it out in the feedback survey as well. But just please, like, if you can, or if you would like to have input essentially on the scheduling, complete this survey with your availability. And I'm going to pause for like a minute so that people can do it right now.
Hey Vici, times in this survey are Eastern, all Eastern time, right?
They're all Eastern. Yes.
So I want to confirm. Thanks.
Great clarification. And yeah, I think the vision for this right now is virtual, and that could change. Cool. And so, yeah, again, we'll send it out again. So if you need more time to reflect on your calendar and stuff, just ask that you do that in the next couple of days. And so with that, what we're going to do is I'm just going to offer if anyone wants to share any gratitude to close, and then we will reopen the breakouts for your teams. You don't have to go in there, but I know it was helpful in the past. If it is helpful, y'all can hop back in and use that to plan your next step. Like if you want to decide on what your weekly meeting time is, or at least get a next conversation on the calendar, you just have the chance to do that. And then from there, you are welcome to exit the meeting. But just offering that if it's helpful. And so, yeah, before we shoot off into that for the last time, just wanted to see if anyone wanted to unmute, share any shout outs, gratitude, closing thoughts, or type anything in the chat.
I'd like to shout out Malaron Hodge, my coach. I'd like to shout out Malaron for always being available, always checking in, like, hey, how y'all doing? Checking in, seeing what's going on. Do you need to have a meeting? Like, she's legit pursuing support. And I think that that's really great, not just having it offered, but Queen pursues it. So.
I was going to shout y'all out because every time we come to these convenings, y'all show up and show out. And so I am just so thankful to be working with y'all. So love back at y'all.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Just shout out to everyone on here for diving into this. That was a wild session and totally love it. So with that, free to hop off. I'm going to open the breakout room so that if you want, you can meet with your team one more time. Either way, would encourage you to get a meeting on the calendar and please invite us to it. And yeah, just excited for what comes next. We'll be waiting in here too if you want to talk or ask any questions, but I'm going to open these rooms right now.